Greetings, my friends. Today we'll be looking at the Browning AB3. I had a request to look at it, so I picked one up and it's on the table in pieces. But before I get into that, I wanted to invite you to Patreon. You can join me there. I am not in charge of this kind of thing. I'm not great at the web and the internet. But Patreon facility has been set up, and I'm hoping that you can, like I said, log in there or whatever it is you have to do. And we're going to be looking at all kinds of things there that I decided probably belong in that kind of environment. We'll look at everything from technical innovations with guns and things that I don't cover on this YouTube channel. You know, in a lot of ways, we're just sort of bouncing off the surface of guns. It might seem like we're going into detail, but just looking at a gun and some sites the people are firing these guns, which is fine, but it doesn't really cover the details and the depths that one can go into. And we'll have some interesting things too. I got in the habit of trying to pick up guns that I noticed in movies because they're kind of interesting. So for example, I have on the table the Lawrence of Arabia flare pistol, which is a story on its own. All kinds of things. And I'd also like to explore more the inventions and ideas that you send in that maybe aren't entirely suitable on the YouTube channel. So please, you're probably better at this than I am at finding Patreon and doing whatever it is you have to do to join me there. But I think it'll be worth your while. And I have a lot of ground to cover. It's actually surprising. Life gets more and more interesting. Anyway, so much on that subject. I'll shift to the AB3 or AB3. And again, I had an A-bolt. I had before that Browning BBR, and the BBR was an excellent rifle. To me, it was kind of like a Browning-made Weatherby, and if you own a BBR, you'll know what I mean. It was accurate, it was excellent, it was well made, and so on. It was heavy, and the bolt was big. Then I think, if I remember the sequence correctly, they came out with the A-bolt, and then the A-bolt 2, and then they introduced the X-bolt, and now we've got this AB3, but they continue to produce the prior versions, which is kind of interesting and unique actually for a manufacturer. Anyhow, I was thinking about this Patreon, and then I've got a whole bunch of things that I'm working on at the same time, partly from people sending messages, which is actually really interesting. And I took this gun apart, and I had it apart, and then I was looking for the trigger, and because you kind of do things almost like in a trance state. And so here's the trigger of the AB3, and it's hard for me to express things sometimes, but we've come a long way from conventional classic gun design. This entire assembly, except for maybe the pin that the trigger pivots on and the flat spring, or rather it's kind of an adapted coil spring that causes the trigger to move. The entire assembly is a polymer. There's a lot of flex in the trigger. Is this workable? I'm sure it is. Did I fire this? I don't think so. But everybody likes them. And they're lightweight, and they're not that expensive, and they have a nice walnut stock. And the barrel is probably excellent, because barrels generally are excellent. And then I guess this assembly comes to bear against the trigger, which seems to be sort of attached here. And undoubtedly it works, because it's rare to find a product that actually is on the market and doesn't work. The receiver itself is nicely made. I mean, we've got some decent milling operations here. Typical bolt release. The recoil lug is attached to the barrel. This is a good thing. I actually think they've improved the appearance of the receiver on the A-bolt. We had these angular shapes that made it look like an A, of course. This I probably should have taken off before filming, but I didn't. And I like this one-piece scope mount. And you know, you've probably noticed the manufacturers are getting away from iron sights. They're an additional cost, so probably you can have this permanently there. And it seems to be fairly high and bulky, so even if you put iron sights on the gun somehow, it might be difficult to see them. Anyway, that's besides the point. Other features, we've got a 3-lug bolt. Not bad. Everything here is routine gun design. We've got a kind of an abbreviated Sacco extractor here, and then the ejector's in the bolt face. Sort of the Remington heritage of things. Not bad machining. I mean, yeah, they definitely know how to machine things. The bolt handle is separate from the bolt, but it's locked in place, so it's not going anywhere. And taking it apart was no problem. We'll see whether I can get it back together again. The bolt runs smoothly. This trigger it's part of the stock. And by the way, this is not like groundbreaking or something. I had English guns where the trigger was on a pin, and in fact, it reminds me a little bit of Lee Enfield. But anyway, my thought was, it's just not classic gun making design, but that doesn't mean it doesn't work. And this is another polymer piece with a steel pin and some kind of springs here to retain the magazine, which is a combination of steel and polymer. So you put all this plastic and metal together, and I guess you have a working rifle. And these are the 2 screws that hold the whole thing together. And well, the screws are steel, so that's good. And you need an Allen key to take that apart. And it has a well-designed stock. Like they've got the see, this is a little weird. I tried to reach for a trigger here because it's not there. They've got the dimensions correct and some kind of checkering. And I actually don't know what these change hands for new, or what you pay for one new. I bought this used. It doesn't look used. There's not a mark on it. And I think somebody's been into the bedding. There's something going on in here. Like, I don't know, maybe you out there know. That doesn't look like factory bedding to me. Somebody's been in there, but it could be factory bedding. And in which case I'll be interested to know what they had in mind. There's a lot of glass and some kind of a thing here. But you know, I'll take it to the range, and maybe somebody was dissatisfied with the groups or something like that. But altogether, I'd say it's a typical post Tikka T3 modern rifle, and by that I mean every application of modern techniques has been applied in order to accomplish a rifle that can be sold at a profit. And I don't know about this trigger. I mean, I'm sure you out there will know this trigger better than I do. But as I said before, it probably works. So altogether, my impression of the gun, it's probably serviceable. I would say undoubtedly accurate. And longevity, I'm not sure. Do polymers last? Probably, if we look at Glock handguns, we would say they do. This remote relationship between the trigger and the trigger mechanism, I don't know, it's kind of like steering by wire in the new BMWs. That works, but I don't mind a direct mechanical link between the trigger and the trigger mechanism, but somebody else would argue with me. Anyhow, that's about all I have to say. Sorry if I'm a little disorganized. I was kind of shocked by these features, and maybe this is how it's supposed to be done now, but it's definitely not a Mauser or a whole range of other rifles, the Ruger, but that may be reflected in the new price, so there could be a sense to it. Anyhow, thank you for watching, and in closing, please have a look at that Patreon, and I'm hoping you can kind of join me there, and we can get that whole show on the road, which I think you'll find quite interesting. And as always, thanks for watching, and you take care.